Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 75. I'm Adam.
Andrew.
And I'm Brian.
Before we get into our review this week, of course, we'd like to invite you over to our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and our website, meeplesonmeeples.com. Go subscribe to all of them and follow along with our videos.
This week's game of the week is Rallyman. In case you can't tell from the track, it's basically rally racing, and each person gets one car. There's up to 4 players. There's a white, yellow, blue, and red car, and then it comes with 5 different boards that are double-sided. So there's this one has paved track, and on the flip side there's snow. And basically you put them together in a way such that 3 boards connect to make one long continuous track. Now, rally racing, at least this form of rally racing, you're not doing laps. It's just a start point and an end point with checkpoints in between, and you stagger the starts. So this track that I set up here, we're all lined up. We'll go through here, we'll cut it into the corner of this board, into the corner here, come back onto this one, and it just goes all over the place and ends up actually coming out right here.
And that's actually a pretty long race. You can make some really short ones.
Yeah, you can make some relatively short ones too. This would be one of the longer ones probably. So you choose the board layout that you want to do. Everyone gets a little dashboard. We always like our little personal player mats. You get a Sisu card. I'm probably totally not saying that correctly. You get a spare tire card. You've got your car, and then you decide who's going to go first. You line up the decks of cards. There's one for first gear, second, third, fourth, fifth gear, and there's one for when you take shortcuts. And that's pretty much all you really need to get started. On your turn, you will move your car 1 space for every die you choose to use. Unlike most games where you roll and you move the number of spaces on the die, these dice have, the white ones are all blank but 1 exclamation point side. And there's 2 of those white dice. There's a first gear die which has 5 1 sides and 1 exclamation point. The 2 is 4 2s and 2 exclamation points. The 3 has 2 exclamation points. The 4 has 2 also, I believe. And so does the 5. So what you can do is you start off in first gear, and so I might say, okay, I'm going to use my first gear die, so I automatically get a move 1. I do have to still roll the die, though, because if the exclamation point comes up, I'm in danger of losing control. If 3 exclamation points come up on your one turn, you lose control, and then you can veer off to the side, and we'll explain that in a second. So I just rolled the regular one, so I'm okay. Then I decide I'm going to gear up to 2, so then I would use the 2 die. I would do the same. Oh, exclamation point, gotta be careful. I'm gonna bump up to 3rd gear. Ooh, 2 exclamation points. So now I have to decide, do I want to continue or do I want to stop? There's kind of that push your luck element. The white dice represent speeding up or slowing down, so you can get a few more extra dice in before you move up another gear. And then the one thing to remember is you reuse a die in a turn, so you can't gear up and then gear down in one turn. You have to kind of decide. Now, why would you ever gear down? It's a lot like Formula D. When you get to the turns, there's a number there saying you cannot be going above first gear if you want to take the inside, and you can't go above second gear if you want to drift, and then that takes you 3 turns to get around that corner. And if you go above, then again, you can lose control, take damage, etc.
And when you end the turn, after you've decided where to stop, say he stops on 4th gear here, you take the 4th gear card. And that reminds you not only what gear you're going to start on next turn, but also gives you the time it took you to make it that distance.
It took me 20 seconds for that turn. That helps because you keep piling them up so nobody really knows. It's not who's in the lead, because what happens is I go first, and then the second turn I go again, and then player 2 goes. The 3rd turn I start, player 2, and then player 3 comes in. And then the 4th turn is player 1, player 2, player 3. So that way you're always staggered, and rarely will you ever overtake someone. That's a difficult thing to do.
The whole point is to just do it the fastest.
It's the traditional rally racing. You're racing the clock, you're not racing the other racers.
And you don't know what the clock is because you keep piling up, which is kind of nice. It doesn't have that runaway leader issue that Formula D has. Other rules. Now, if you were to wipe out for some reason or have a problem or get 3 of these exclamation points. The last die I rolled was a 4. It was my 3rd exclamation. I still take a 4 card like I have here. Well, I already have one.
Yep.
And then you flip it to the back side, meaning you do whatever it says on the back, and it takes a minute instead of 20 seconds. So this says I veer off to the left of the road, which means I would be over in the trees, and then there's rules for you take damage from hitting trees, more damage if you hit rocks, etc.
And of course it drops you back all the way down to first gear too.
Yep, and then you start over in first gear your next turn. On my following turn, though, I believe originally we said I ended in 4th gear, so my next turn I have a couple of options now. I can start with the 4th gear die. I can start by gearing down to 3 right away, since I have to gear down for this sharp turn coming up. I can gear up to 5th, or I can start with a white die. So you have a lot of options as to what you do with your next turn.
Stay in fourth, go down, or go up.
Yeah. Or these are use the speed up, slow down, however you want to, whatever you want the white die to represent.
Whichever direction you go, you have to continue to go that way.
Yeah,
you
you
can't go to
reuse
third
dice.
and then jump to fifth because that's a dice you haven't used yet.
Yep.
If for any reason you draw, there's rules for, so you have the rules for taking turns, and again, you lose control if you go too fast. If you take shortcuts, there's little dirt corners that let you cut the corner in a higher gear. So instead of taking third, I can actually hit this at fourth and take the shortcut. I have to draw a shortcut card, it's the K, and do what it says. This one says, ooh, I pop a tire and go. If I pop a tire, that means I cover up one of these white spots, and I can use one less white die for the rest of the game. I can only use this many dice on a turn.
You also have other options, like this one says a -1, and what that's doing is it's throwing you throw some dirt on the track, basically.
And there's little tokens, so you pull a mud
so
token.
instead of having to take that in third, you now have whoever goes through it next has to take it in second.
For the whole rest of the game, actually, stays there.
Yep.
-1. It'd be second there or 3 if you're going to drift. So you take a -1 to that. So you might pop your tire. You might throw mud and slow everybody else down. So there's kind of cool effects like that. And then, like I said, if you do pop a tire, you can use this. Everyone has that one spare tire card I said. You just put it on top of your pile. That adds a minute to your time.
And you also have the Sisu card, or however you pronounce it.
the sissy card, I don't know what it is. And that is, if you do roll 3 exclamation points, you can use this one time in the game to show that you're an expert driver and you regain control whatever at the last second. So you go through, and I end in 4th gear, next turn I end in 2nd gear, I end in 5th gear, whatever, and then you add up all of your times at the end, and whoever has the shortest amount of time wins the race. And that was a long explanation, but hopefully it made sense to you.
And actually, and the idea is you're not supposed to do one race, but they actually give you the scorecard where you can keep track of multiple races. So you can do a 3-race, I guess, tournament or whatever you want to call it, and then keep track of who has the shortest time overall.
Let's talk about strategy in this game. There is a ton. Just for the fact that you don't just roll like a normal game where you're like, oh, I pick one die, I roll it. You have to try and run in order. You have to pick a gear. You have to keep in mind what your corners are going to be. It's quite a bit going on.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play up to, okay, I can ramp it up to 4th gear in this one, but right away that turn there, I either have to take it in 1st or 2nd. So you really got to play to when you are going to end your turn and what gear you're going to end in. And that's kind of an interesting aspect of this game is you kind of control how long your turn is. If you want to only go 2 spaces so you can kind of control what gear you're going to be in when you hit that corner, you can do that. If you want to go kind of balls to the wall, you can run until you get the 2 exclamation points and kind of push your luck that way. But you're totally right. As far as the dice go, there's a lot of strategy in keeping track of your gears and what the corners are coming up especially.
I think another strategy is knowing when to or when not to take the shortcuts. It seems like, I can cut a space, add a higher gear, so I'll be moving faster, which means I'm going to have a less time, because if you end in 1st gear, it took you 50 seconds that turn. If you end in 2nd, it's 40, 30, 20, 10. So it's like I can stay in a higher gear, and obviously that's good to end in a higher gear, because then I'm going to have a lower time. But it's like, well, there's always that risk. You never know what's on the back side of here. Am I going to wipe out? Am I going to get a free go? Am I going to pop a tire? And once you've used up your spare tire, it's gone. You can't use another one.
Plus, using your tire gives you, a minute on your time?
Yeah, a whole minute. Actually, and there was one game where I used it, and I shouldn't have used it.
Right.
I mean, losing that one white die, I couldn't move as many spaces each turn, but rarely do you use all 7 dice anyway.
Right.
So it's like that extra minute, do I change my tire? Do I not?
Yeah,
I think that really depends on how long the race is, though, too. So,
yeah, that's true if you pop it early on.
If you popped it, here, and you still have 3/4 of the race to go, but we played a couple shorter ones, and I did that, too, and I popped it, immediately, and as short as the race was, that extra minute was a killer.
Absolutely.
And one thing you got to keep in mind, and this kind of goes without saying once you learn the rules, is you don't want to be keeping track of where everybody else is on the board. You just want to keep track of your own car, because like Brian said during the introduction, you're not going to be overtaking everybody as the race goes on. Your goal is just to get the shortest time through the track, and sometimes you might feel like you're way behind everybody else, but the way you've been playing your gears and everything, you're going to end up with the shortest time in the end. It's not a race to be the first to the end. It's just the quickest to the end.
Even though it does make you feel good to be ahead.
Oh, yeah. And it's all about dice management. Just knowing, use as many dice as possible. But if I'm gearing down, then I might end in first. Yes, I use all 7 dice, but it took me 50 seconds. Would be better to end in a higher gear, but not move as far and take less time. So that's always, it's basically it's all push your. I mean, there's a lot of push your luck.
And one thing I would say is use the white dice, because the white dice allow you to extend one gear a lot longer. So, I mean, even if you need to stay in second for this first turn here, for example, you can use those white dice to get you right up to that turn, so you're still in second or even third, right up next to that turn. So next time when you start, you'll be in the perfect gear placement, but you still made it a long ways on the board. So you've taken up a little bit of track, but those white dice have kept you exactly where you need to be as far as your gear goes. I mean, I don't know much else we can really give as far as advice for strategy, other than, it's a push your luck.
Yeah.
Manage your dice well.
Keep track of what gear you're at, what's coming up, and then also kind of keep track of how much time you have, Do you need to push it a little bit harder, or can you take it a little bit easier? And you don't know what the other players have, but you're still kind of racing against yourself. So.
Yeah, and you can kind of keep track of how other people have been ending their turns.
Right.
And things like that, so... I think that's about it for strategy, though.
Yep.
Let's talk likes and dislikes then. I will start out just kind of the likes that we always kind of get into is having your own little player board, your kind of player aid in front of you that gives you, and the fact that it's themed to the race too. It's your dashboard look to it.
And on one side, it's kind of cool. One side is paved, tires. The other side is snow tires, and it changes the rules just a teeny bit, which is kind of cool.
I guess I didn't realize that.
I love the double-sided boards, and there's the fact that there's only 5 relatively small boards, but the spaces are small, and there's so much going on the board that you can make hundreds of different tracks. It's really impressive.
As you can see, there's how many different tracks through this board alone? 5 different tracks through it.
Yeah, and the artwork is very good. The snow's kind of cool. You can see tire marks in the snow and everything, and
yeah, and that kind of gets into components. I think the components for this game are really nice. The art style, the heavy board, the double-sided board, the double-sided player aid, all very nicely done, I think.
Even the little cars, the windows aren't over-painted, and the tires, all the little painting on them and everything is nice. It's not overdone. And one thing, is there special rules if you wanted to connect a snow track to a road track?
Just when you hit, I believe there are. If you don't have snow tires, I believe there's rules for what you can and can't do on snow. So once you hit the snow,
we never tried, I guess, a crossover track like that.
Right.
Yeah,
but and that even adds even more possibilities for tracks. So,
component-wise, though, I would say it's really nice. The card quality isn't outstanding. It is mini cards, Andrew. So I apologize, but
I'm going to throw this out there though. This is basically a one-man operation. He does have a big company that releases it for him in different regions of the world, but it's basically one guy who has made this game, and I think this is people always say they've never heard of it, which is funny because I think this is the 5th printing.
Really?
I just got at Christmas about a month ago.
Wow.
So he's really been kind of pushing it and doing his thing. When you consider that, this is quite the impressive layout.
I was impressed with it alone, but knowing that, I guess I did not know that going into it. That even more impressive. It's just a well put together package.
I'm a big sucker for theme coming through in a game, and I like cars, and stuff. So the idea of the rules for drifting, the rules for snow versus, and then it's very rare and hard to get because it's a one-man operation. But he made a dirt track expansion too. That's I'm pretty sure out of print, unfortunately. So there's rules for dirt track versus snow versus pavement. And it's just, I think the theme really comes through really well as far as changing gears, blowing tires.
Yeah, I don't know too much about rally racing, but kind of the push your luck mechanic of it too kind of feels like that would be something that would be going on in the race of, okay, how fast can I take these turns? How fast can I, take the jumps?
And jumps, we tried to mention there are jumps, and if you hit it at a lower gear, it's a 3 with a caret above it here. So if I hit this in 2nd gear, I just move on to this spot. If I'm going to hit it in 3rd gear, I would jump over that spot, so my next die would take me 2 spaces. And if I want to hit it 4th gear, I can jump 2 spots, but then
some damage issues.
If I roll that last die and I get the exclamation point, whether it's my 3rd or not, it doesn't matter. I automatically lose control. So yeah, there's jumps. There's everything in rally racing is found in this game.
Theme-wise, I agree. It comes across really, really well. I like the fact that even though it isn't, like we've talked about, necessarily, you're really racing against each other to be the first to the end, I think you still get the competition in there really well. The races are relatively short, even these long tracks. that you kind of gonna build up. All right, I'm gonna take this turn faster than Andrew did, so I can bring my time down. And then the fact that you can do like kind of the tournament style where you do like multiple races brings a little bit more competition.
Well, and
into
even
it.
just a nice thing that they didn't really have to give you this. I mean, you could just write it on a blank piece of paper, and they give you a whole notepad of them.
But I think
just the small details in this game are very nice.
I think there was a risk, though, that the fact that you're just racing the clock and not each other, it could have kind of felt disconnected. But I don't think it really does. I think it really holds it well.
I don't either.
I think one thing that it actually pulls in is, like I briefly mentioned before, we've played many games of Formula D, and I love Formula D. That's like way up there in my list of favorite games. But you have that runaway leader problem. You get so far into the race, and there's one guy who's half a lap ahead of everybody. You're like, unless he's an idiot and just ends in a fiery death, he's going to win. And so then it's just like I'm playing for second at that point, or maybe even third if there's another person who's way ahead. And there's no runaway leader because it's staggered. Whoever starts in first is 99% of the time going to end first. Also, it's just how well did he, gear up his car and drive the track. So it's nice that you don't have to. You don't think the whole game like, well, I'm not going to win anyway.
Not to sit and praise on it. Anybody have any dislikes about the game? Something that just kind of brings it down for them?
For me, mini cards. This is a game that could have had full-size cards. Wouldn't have been a problem. I guess the mini cards aren't really an issue because you're not handling them all that much. And I'm sure it cuts down on the cost quite a bit, which is good for everybody's pocketbook. But
they could have almost done.
Well, look, I think he's going for look at the small box.
That's true.
And the small footprint, it can play on a small table. So I see why. I agree. I like bigger cards too, but I also see what he was doing. You could almost do this on a coffee table, no problem, really.
And I don't know if it's possible because the way these pieces set up, but to maybe make them interlock a little bit somehow to kind of fit together. We didn't necessarily, because the surface we play on, they're not going to get knocked around really well.
But on a standard table, I could see them sliding around a little bit.
Somebody bumps the table, knock them around.
But all in all, most of the time, you're on this space, you're on this space. It's not like you're going to be in the middle of the space.
No.
So even if this piece got moved over here, your piece isn't going to shoot across the table unless you're playing with Pat and he just throws things around.
He just knocks the table over. Nah.
But, and I'm sure, with price point and everything, the cars, the painting and everything's great on them. It would have been cool to have them be a little more flashy just because rally cars are naturally kind of...
You could do like a little
the stripes, the stickers,
fake decals or something on them to look like a sponsored
But being
car.
as small as they are, it's tricky to do too, so...
Yeah, overall, I think they've just done really well with this whole package, though.
Mm-hmm. Alright, it's time for our reviews. 1's terrible, throw it in the garbage. 10's awesome, tell everybody about it. I'm going to give it a 9.
Wow.
I think it's an awesome game. The theme, like Brian said before, theme comes out awesome in it. And that's one big thing with car games is the theme. If you can really get into it, that makes a lot for me. The factor that you have the dice and you have to really be strategic with how you use them and you can't jump way up and way down, which is kind of a thing that I didn't like about Formula D is there was too much of the gear shifting and all of that. The components are very nice. The only complaint I had was mini cards, but with this game you're not handling them a lot, so it's not really a big deal. So that's where I'm at. I'm at a 9.
Wow. I believe, to put it in perspective, I gave Formula D a 9, but this is really close. This is an 8.5 for me, I think. It's right on the heels of Formula D. Formula D just... The setup is a little easier, trying to find a decent track is a little more fiddly, whereas Formula D is just you have a board, and they've sold many, there's double-sided, and they're big tracks, and they've sold many expansions for it. This guy's already said this is it. He's done after this printing. He's pretty sure, because nobody wants to pick it up evidently or whatever. So it's going to be a little harder to find. There aren't going to be as many expansions and whatnot. And this only plays 4, whereas Formula D can be up to 10. So. But again, you heard our likes and dislikes section where we just heap praise on this, so that's why it's a little lower than Formula D, but still a solid, respectable 8.5. It's an awesome game, and again, that theme really comes through. Drifting around corners is sweet.
I'm going to agree with both of you, basically everything you said. I'm going to give it a 9 like Andrew. And I'm going to say something that might be blasphemy to Brian. I think I like this more than Formula D, to be honest.
Like I said, it's real close.
Yeah,
so I'm not gonna be too upset about that.
The theme is really good in this. Put part of, and you've said this, and the more I've thought about it, I agree with. You don't have that runaway leader. It's racing the clock. You don't know who's going to be the winner in the end, really, unless you're writing down everybody's time as you go through.
Well, let me throw this at you. Do you think this could play solo? Like, I've never played board games solo, but do you think this is something you could actually try to see if you can get the best time? Would you ever play it solo?
You could. I don't know if I would, but
You
I think
could,
this is
though, I
possible.
think,
You
yeah.
pull it
Well, I
off,
think
yeah.
really easily you could play by yourself. I mean, because you're really racing the clock. The only thing that you wouldn't get is debris from somebody else or...
True. I mean, and part of what also puts it over in Formula D for me maybe is the tracks, even the long tracks are relatively quick. You can kind of play, again, the tournament style in one night, sit and get a bunch of races in. It has a good competitive feel to it, even though, like I said before, it could run the risk of you just, playing the game by yourself, which, as you mentioned, you might actually be able to do. But, the components are great. Everything about it is just a lot of fun. The fact that it's only 4 people, I think, is maybe a good thing for this game. Because, we've played some Formula games. We've had, I think, 6 people before. And those games, even the one lap on one of the medium-sized tracks can just feel like forever. Mm-hmm. 4 players, keep it at a nice clip. You can maybe do some shorter tracks. I just like it a lot. A solid 9 for me. And I think that's our review then for Rallyman. Check back next week and see what we're playing.